join Cody's Cult Cinema Club, home of the unwanted, the unloved, and the unappreciated. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Cody.
As discussed last week, we're discussing Predator 2 this week.
Probably not the best Predator movie. I have no clue about that.
Oh, I disagree a bit. But anyway, we'll get into that. Yeah, it's not a huge franchise, really. I mean, when you count the AVP movies, it's 6 movies, but standalone Predator movies, only 4. Which is a lot, but it seems like it's not as much as what you'd think.
Well, how much did the actual Alien counterpart get in? Like a movie-wise?
Alien has 6 movies, kind of, if you count Prometheus.
I've never seen Prometheus either.
But 5 otherwise, but I guess 4 proper ones.
Not including AVP.
That would make it 8 in total movies with aliens.
Mm-hmm.
Predator 1 had starred Arnold Schwarzenegger. In this one, they changed from that, and they bring in Danny Glover and his cast of characters, with Gary Busey being one of the... I'll call him an antagonist for the sake of this, but the reason I got for the change was the initial script. 2 things. The initial script for Predator 2 that was going to star Dutch, which was Schwarzenegger's character in Predator 1, was, I guess, below Arnold Schwarzenegger's standards, and also I don't think they got the money they wanted, and that's the impression I got. So once he was out, they rewrote the script and did something totally different. They may have had the city change in mind at first, but yeah, there's talk of Schwarzenegger not liking the new director...
Okay.
The script, but I think it's all these things are usually a combination of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one I know as a cult cinema cast, people are like, oh yeah, Predator 2, is that a cult movie? I'm like, I say it is, because you look at this, it did not make a lot of money in the box office.
Okay.
It didn't do what they wanted, and it had a bigger budget than Predator 1 too, probably because of the city shooting, I assume. Yeah. The effects are about on par. Yeah, didn't make as much money as the last one and had a bigger budget. Also, if you look up this thing on Rotten Tomatoes, it's like 25%, which is just nonsense.
Yeah, so back to the budget. It had a budget of $35 million. Yeah. So it's a bigger budget than our last movie by far.
Yeah, this is 1980 money.
Yeah, and it made $57 million at the box office. However, Predator 1 was shot on $15 million and made $98 million.
Also, rule of thumb, based on what I know about the industry, which isn't much, but still, you generally have to double your budget to start making profit.
Okay.
Because movie theaters get half of initial ticket prices. Mm-hmm. So it changes. It's not exact, but yeah, generally you have to double your budget, and then you start making real money.
Also, you're probably paying out your producers,
that's included. These numbers don't necessarily include advertising, though. So that even yeah. But generally, the rule of thumb is double the budget, and then you start doing okay. Mm-hmm. Doesn't necessarily mean you did good. They usually want big numbers, but yeah, and then after this, the franchise does not return in proper until 2010, and only returns in the Alien vs. Predator spin-offs in 2004.
So none of this actually really matters in hindsight.
Yeah. No, it takes a good 20 years for this to come back, and that seems to be mostly off the strength of the original Predator film, and also expanded. I was going to say video games and comics and whatnot.
Yeah, so really, before watching this, my only understanding of the series as a total was from the comics, because I did read a couple of them when I was a kid, and on top of that, the Alien vs. Predator series.
Yeah.
So, this would have been the first movie in the series that I've actually watched. Predator 2. I did not watch the first one, and I did. From my understanding, I didn't really need to, because they really didn't touch a whole lot on what happened in the previous film. They mentioned it once that a predator was found and was fighting a paramilitary group in Moana.
Yeah, which is the plot of the first movie. They give you the gist of it. They give you the gist of what happened, which was Arnold Schwarzenegger's mercenary company had gone in for the CIA and had done a job, and they ended up encountering the Predator, and then it ended in the Predator self-destructing and destroying a ton of forest.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's really... And this is really separate. You don't see... I don't think any... Yeah, no characters from the original into this.
Which is weird because it was written by the same writers. And I mean, I guess if you couldn't get, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger back, that maybe you could have gotten one of the secondary characters.
They're all dead. Like, in universe. Yeah. No, only... the only guys that survived from the original are Arnold Schwarzenegger... Spoiler alert. Are Arnold Schwarzenegger and one of the female lead in that movie who's not... is a bit part. The character doesn't even speak a lot of English, just like speaks the basic bit. So yeah, there's no they can't pick up any secondary characters from that. So they had to make up the entire new cast. Pretty much, even whether or not they got Schwarzenegger or not, they would have needed to put an entire new group in there. Predator is a good franchise. It's just they've never. I don't know if they've ever gotten quite the money they want out of it after the first one. Mm-hmm. I don't know how the 2018 The Predator. I'll call it Predator 4 for simplicity. Yeah. I don't know how Predator 4 did. It's garbage. I hate Predator 4. It's the worst by far.
Okay.
There's good stuff in it, but it's I don't like it.
But you could see very.
I'll get more in. Yeah. I'll get more into that.
They wanted to combine the two series between Predator and Alien.
And we'll get into that a little bit later, along with some gripes about Predator 4, I'm sure. Film opens. It opens to the Predator vision. The Predator classically sees only in infrared as its natural eyesight. Mm-hmm. And he's observing the city of Los Angeles in the near future of 1997. Because this movie is released in 1990, but takes place in 97. We see some signs of this because Los Angeles has devolved in an active gang war situation where mostly the cops are fighting the Colombian cartel and also the Jamaican gang. I forget what they called it.
Voodoo Posse.
Yeah, they call it the Voodoo Posse in the movie. So this is kind of like a near dystopian future, actually. Semi-dystopian. They're clearly not getting the support they need to be able to deal with this. No. Because in real life, you shoot up, even in these dangerous cities, you shoot up a city block like we see at the beginning of the movie here. Yeah. You're getting taken down pretty steadily. And this seems to be happening very frequently, or something to this approximation. Our movie proper starts with some news footage of a active shooting situation in the middle of the city after that had started when a cop had unfortunately pulled over a member of the Colombian cartel, and from then it escalated into a giant gunfight. 2 cops are injured, they're stuck in the middle of the road. The special weapons team, which I guess is their equivalent to SWAT, is not able to get there quickly because they are busy dealing with another situation on the other side of the city. So yeah, you get a decent idea how this is surprisingly good world building, I find.
And it's all as a newscast, which I like. It's in an act shooting zone. You can hear bullets flying around in the newscast.
One newscaster gets shot at and is just like, fuck this, I'm out of here. Literally, that's...
We have this guy who comes in and he's like an ace on the job reporter, and he's running up and he's talking about how the mayor is in Lake Montauk at his vacation home.
Yeah,
instead of coming here dealing with this giant mess that's unfolding in his city.
Which really is probably just a continual situation. So there is that, but still. Yeah, the special weapons is dealing with a issue with the Voodoo Posse on the other end of town. We start introducing the main cops here, played by a couple of members of the main cast. You meet Leona Cantrell and Danny Archuleta, played by Maria Conchita and Ruben Blades. They are huddled behind a cop car, evading gunfire. We soon see our main character, played by Danny Glover, Lieutenant Mike Harrigan, burst into the scene in his car. opening the back trunk of his car and just finds a bunch of handguns. Just a big bag of handguns. Proceeds to take a big shotgun off the roof of the trunk, which we pan up to see. He then drives his car and commits a daring rescue, driving his car so that it covers the 2 injured cops so they can start recovering them, and so the cops can have another bit of cover so they can advance. Soon the cartel is driven back into a building, which is a base of operation of sorts.
I'd just like to go back for a second and talk about the guns in this movie, because the guns in this movie are weirdly designed. Every single handgun, it seems to have a scope. He's carrying around a 6-piece shooter, Magnum of sort, with a scope on top.
And there's no uniformity in a lot of the guns. Everything's heavily armed in this thing. It really I think it speaks to the desperate situation the cops are in. They don't have the power to take on the cartels, and they haven't called in anyone above this, really, I don't think. At least not long term. And no. you get a sense that there's a lot of, in the background, jurisdictional issues that are just like keeping them from doing anything they need to do. So the cartel's driven back into the building. They start arming themselves, and an invisible creature crashes through the glass roof of the building. That's our introduction to the Predator. They receive a call over the radio to hunker down and wait for the feds or something. But Lieutenant Harrigan reasons that if they don't go in now, the cartel will have an opportunity to hunker down and get all armed, and they won't. Yeah. It'll be way worse getting in there. They climb into the building shortly after the Predators made short work of these cartel guys. Eventually, they're wandering through. They notice that everyone's dead already, which is confusing them, and begins this little mystery plot that they have throughout the movie, where where the 4 main cops, which one is introduced later, are trying to figure out what the deal is, because this is a weird situation, and they don't know Predator's not public knowledge. No. So they're like, what's going on here? And they notice that people are dead. Eventually, they find the one remaining guy who backs out of a room with 2 Uzis blazing into the room. Yeah. And then, in his shock, because he's mid-combat, just turns and shoots one of the cops, one of the red shirts. And then he proceeds to run onto the roof, where the guy is not even really looking for the cops. He clearly just shot the one guy in instinct. He's trying to find this invisible creature, and it's just like looking around. Lieutenant Harrigan chases him onto the roof and tells him to put his guns down. But he's clearly in a giant panic, so he's looking around. And eventually he looks up, sees the Predator's shimmer on the top of the building behind Lieutenant, and starts shooting at it. Lieutenant Harrigan does the logical thing and shoots the guy because he thinks he's being shot at. The cartel guy falls off the roof. He goes there and is like, realizing something's off. And so he's looking around, because this guy is looking skittish, and he sees a bit of the Predator's glimmer, but doesn't register as any. He doesn't know what's going on. So he's like, okay, here's a bit of a shimmer. What is that? And so then the mystery begins.
So, going back to this shimmer, I don't understand it, because when they brought it up later in the movie, they stated that the camouflage that the Predator has is absolute camouflage.
This is how it works. It's okay. Yeah, it gets them mostly pretty much invisible, except for a shimmer. Okay. Yeah. That's the way it worked in the original too. It typically works. It's really difficult to see. Mm-hmm. So it's essentially,
if you weren't looking for it, you definitely wouldn't see it.
And even then, 20/20 vision or whatever. They find a bit more of the Predator's dirty work here, and see giant chest cavities in guys, heads cut off, and then eventually Archuleta finds a bit of blood dripping from the ceiling, looks up, sees a guy hanging from the roof 40 feet up. He tells Lieutenant Harrigan, okay, no, this is impossible. Yes. Because, you're the strongest guy I know, and you couldn't climb him up there on his own. And then they get some shit from jurisdictional issues, and as they walk out of the room, we see the hanging man bit pulled out of frame. He is then greeted by these X-File type guys that claim I believe they claim they're DEA or FBI or the feds.
CIA.
Yeah.
Something along those.
We then cut to the LAPD, which is crowded as all hell, which just speaks to the situation they're in.
Yeah.
Like, they're just doing tons of interrogations in the main room of the
precinct.
Yeah, room of the precinct. And we meet our fourth lead, who is goofing off and talking to a female cop, I assume. Danny initially brushes him off because he's like, who the hell is this guy? Yeah, they do a joke where he's like not noticing people. Yeah, he talks to the cap and he gets told to back off of this because higher powers are at this. And Harrigan brushes them off. I think this is any other movie I'd like constant cop tropes. But I think in this situation, this might be like a common problem for him, where like some Fed comes in, goofs off, and just like gets some fancy crap going. So he has to still do it himself, or else the problem doesn't get fixed. So like he's not taking this seriously, and possibly grudging on the situation. Maybe he has a reason to. And I think this speaks to like the situation that the Predators put itself in, where this is such a crazy, like, unstable political situation, where like there's constantly gunfire in the streets. Getting an organized resistance might even be minimal chance or even impossible in this, because it's just chaos. They're not just going to go after this one guy. They got 50 other guys to worry about.
Yeah, organized crime.
Yeah. He's then introduced to our fourth character, who is he meets Bill Paxton. He tries hitting on Maria Conchita's character.
Leona.
Leo. He starts hitting on Leona, who then grabs his crotch and squeezes really hard, and not in a fun way.
Yeah.
Kind of laying down the rules here. It's like, hey, I'm not some doe-eyed blonde that's gonna that's gonna just do whatever you want. She does end up softening up toward him in the movie, but I think, who knows? Yeah, but it's just she's laying down the ground rules there.
Yeah.
As Archuleta and Harrigan chuckle from the other side of the glass.
Yeah.
And then finally Mike Harrigan and Jerry Lambert talk. We are introduced to the fact that Jerry was a semi-famous cop called the Lone Ranger and requested a transfer to the crazy LAPD section, which is a lot like getting transferred to Gotham. Harrigan tells him, look, this isn't something to showboat. This is actually really dangerous. You've essentially gone from cops to military. And they have a frank discussion. And honestly, this is one thing I like about it. All the main cast is sort of likable. Like Officer Lambert's flaws don't keep him from doing a qualified job.
No. And he's honestly more comic relief, but he gets the job done throughout the movie.
He's comic relief, and he's competent.
Yes.
Yeah. And it balances out. He's not a liability. He does good fighting. He's about as qualified to be here as anyone.
Yes.
And it's refreshing, because all these characters are likable, which is the first thing I know. It's normally when, like, a 25% movie has, like, characters like, this guy's going to be a stereotype, and this guy's going to be a... But it's actually, like, a likable and, frankly, a little diverse group of cast. African-American lead, Hispanic female lead.
Another Hispanic gentleman.
Is Archuleta supposed to be Hispanic or Asian?
Maybe.
Let me click on Rudin Blades here. He is he's from Panama. So yeah, a nice little diverse cast if you're looking for it, which is nice. Is Gary Busey introduced here?
Yes, he is.
Yeah. We also meet Gary Busey's character, Peter Keyes. He is part of this hush-hush government business. He's Gary Busey. He's like generally meant to be unlikable, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get more into this, but he's introduced. He's just like, oh yeah, step off and do a thing. And Harrigan doesn't believe him. We've talked about that, how he's dismissive of the feds coming in and doing this. Almost like he doesn't believe they'll do the thing they're doing, or that it's just going to muck something up and they'll never see anything of it. And clearly not... Another thing, I don't think he's... What the city needs is maybe like prolonged federal intervention, and Harrigan does not believe Gary Busey's going to bring that.
You also can kind of see the power struggle between Harrigan's character morally, and then the brass above him who just kind of shit on him throughout this whole entire movie.
They do talk him up a little bit. They do, because he does got tons of commendations. Yeah, it's a balancing act because he's in this really rough neighborhood.
Yeah,
he's also doing really good, and it's a hard balancing act because he's dealing with a lot of bad people, and also he's trying to do his best. But yeah, Gary Busey's doing is all hush hush to him, and he's just like, oh yeah, I'll do what you say, rolling his eyes, kind of. You can tell internally. Gary Busey is secretly part of a government organization that is tracking down the Predator. We'll get a little bit more into that when that's revealed. Cut to the Jamaican voodoo posse capturing a member of the Colombian cartel in his room as he's having relations with a girlfriend, or who knows. Yeah, so they capture him, they hang him from his heels, and start doing a voodoo ritual. I'm air quoting because this people might take issue with this. It's kind of blaxploitation-y, I guess, and not necessarily in a good way.
No.
Yeah, this would definitely be the most.
He said, "I gotta eat your soul," and then tried to cut out his heart.
Yeah, this is definitely would be the most controversial part of the movie.
Yes.
This might bother some people. I don't know enough about voodoo culture to speak on the matter, so I'll move on. He cuts the guy out, and the Predator appears. We get our first look at him visible. Looks decent. He has a little bit different look than the last one.
Yes. Fishnet stocking system.
Yeah, he's got a fishnet shirt. Yeah, fishnet shirt. It's honestly a weird choice when there's so many guns around.
That's
we do learn he's mildly bulletproof.
Mildly bulletproof, and also yeah.
He takes some small arms fire and walks it off. It takes something a bit heavier, which isn't terribly common in this movie.
No.
Which might be the part of the choices he's made. With the mercenaries in the first one, they all have high-powered machine guns. They do a full mad minute on the guy, and there's a lot of guns. But a lot of this is just like self-defense handguns is what people have. Occasionally there's something bigger, which is what he wants. But just like a lot of people are just like getting killed pretty easily by him.
Yes.
So yeah, the Predator kills them, and we see later that
through another newscast, it was actually shown that the Jamaicans had came in and killed the Colombian drug cartel, and then somebody came in and killed the Jamaicans, and that's where we pick up in the newscast next.
Yeah. We also get a bit of a show off of the Predator's gadgets, which go in slow motion, which some people might not like, but I don't mind it. It's for the time, maybe. It's
1990. It was a little corny, right?
Yeah, but he'll like do like slow motion of the spearheads and his disc weapon. The main cast ends up at the hotel responding to the call. They get told, hey, the feds are taking care of this one too, and he's like, oh yeah, we didn't hear that, we're going up there.
Yeah.
As far as anyone asks. The press is badgering them a little bit, and the new guy says, hey, I'll take care of it. It's my specialty, which is his catchphrase in this movie. And he just takes charge of this reporter pretty effectively. He clearly, Harrigan's really getting what he wants out of this guy. So he holds him off. The feds enter here too. Everyone's hanging from the roof, along with the guy that the voodoo posse had killed. The cartel guy is not skinned alive, but everyone else is. He's clearly had a little bit more time here to do his thing. Yeah, so he doesn't touch the one guy that's killed. He doesn't bring him down or anything. But he's clearly only taking his enjoyment with his kills. The girlfriend, or whatever she was, is left alive, which is in keeping with the Predator's code in the movies. They don't go after unarmed people.
Or females?
No, unarmed.
Unarmed?
Yeah, because he does go after the female cop later in this.
Yes.
We'll get into that later. But yeah, it's about being armed. In the first movie, they make a point of making sure the Colombian woman or Nicaraguan woman, whatever she is, in the first one, they make a point of making sure she doesn't pick up any guns or anything. Yeah. Because the second she picks up a gun, she's a target. Because they want this. Because the Predators want you to fight back, and if you're not fighting back, you're not a
threat.
Yeah. You're outside of the game. Sure. Yeah, they want the fight, and feds kick them out. It's just like, yeah, a lot of this is standard cop tropes, but this is a bit of a different situation. So you look through at all these tropes in a bit of a different light, where it's like, where the FBI and the city police aren't getting along, but here you get a sense that like there's more to this, and there's a genuine reason Mike Harrigan isn't going to like these people, because there really realistically probably would need to be some federal intervention in this situation. And it's never came. And
Gary Busey is very unlikable.
Yeah, also Gary Busey's a dick, so it's easy for them to kind of dismiss him. He does have another guy with him who they find out a bit later is a college, like a hotshot into science guy who spent a little bit of time in the Air Force, was then folded into a larger government organization, and then basically never heard of again. And that's how they realize a little later that's how they realize that a little later this government organization is a little bit more than it seems. Jerry Lambert is told to tail the lady to the hospital. Harrigan says to Archuleta that they'll come check this out later after the government guys have done their stuff. They notice the spearhead welder here, which is a weird design, and they decide, okay, we'll check this out and keep it quiet. It turns out the feds don't find it, but they get lucky. So Jerry Lambert follows the lady. He reports to Harrigan later, and a bar tells him that she never made it to the hospital. She was airlifted elsewhere or something. And so this is not typical stuff, another sign of that. We cut back to Archuleta. He goes in there alone against orders. He tries to make it up to the spearhead, which is still there, climbs up, and is caught by the Predator, and he is then killed. He doesn't let him. He doesn't let Archuleta fall to his death. He does catch him and then kills him. Lieutenant Harrigan gets into further shit when the captain says, "Look, if you weren't such a good cop, we'd be firing you and probably charging you with Archuleta's death." Because
Archuleta followed orders from.
They were told to meet there, and then Archuleta ended up dead, and then Danny found him in a place he wasn't supposed to go to.
And then at that point in time, it's kind of personal between the Predator and Harrigan, because at that point he's killed one of his good friends, and at that point he's being kicked off the case by Peter Keyes, and that's kind of what's driving him now, is that it's no longer just about this big Colombian gang war. He wants personal revenge against the person that killed Danny.
He's ready to go off right on his own, but the other two cops, main characters, come to stop him. Jerry Lambert gives him a speech from earlier. Hey, we're part of a team. We do this together. Harrigan Leona that he wants to meet with King Willie, because clearly they're dealing with a mutual enemy. He is soon met with a weed spilling out with weed smoke, and is then driven to a back alley where he meets King Willie. He remarks that they need to quit smoking.
Yes.
Which, the Jamaican stereotypes are a lot in this. It might bother you quite a bit. Yeah, so they have a conversation. Willie is convinced that this is a ghost, like a spirit that is coming to do bad stuff. So he doesn't get much information about him, about this guy. Harrigan walks off, and then the Predator shows up to kill Willie.
Yeah, and Willie is, once again, like, over-dramatized, over the top. Like, he's got a snake cane and almost a, like, pimp jacket and stuff like that on him with massive amounts of dreads. Really stereotypical. The racism and sexism in this movie are really indicative of it being in the 1990s.
And yet a diverse cast that is portrayed positively. So it's a weird balancing act. And maybe that's a layover from, I guess, whatever the original script would have been with Schwarzenegger. Yeah, it's a bit weird. Yeah, so he kills Willie. Willie's doing a scream, and they cut to the Predator hauling Willie's head away with its mouth agape in the scream.
Mm-hmm.
The Predator takes the head somewhere and boils the skin off and makes it into a trophy and puts it into a cabinet where we see our first glimpse of a alien head in this.
Yes.
So that's our first sign that those two franchises are connected.
Which, those are two completely different writers, right?
Yeah, no, it was completely different at the beginning.
Same studio, or
I think they're both distributed by 20th Century Fox.
Okay.
There were video games in the 90s. There was an Alien vs. Predator arcade game, and I think there were some comics. The movie happened in 2004.
Okay.
Which is, again, the next appearance of the Predator after this, because the audiences did not take to this. I think part of why this didn't last is they don't have their box office draw on Arnold Schwarzenegger, because the Rambo movies are way worse than this, and there's a dozen sequels, and that's, I think, driven purely by Sylvester Stallone wanting to do them.
I guess. Same with Rocky.
The Rocky is his own passion project. That makes sense. Budgets are a bit different on those, but still, it's just like it's a shame we didn't get Predator 3, because I do like this movie. Yeah. Quite a bit.
I'll go back into that later, because I have my own feelings from somebody who just watched Predator 2.
So, while Archuleta had been killed, he had taken Archuleta's necklace that he had.
Yeah.
And the Predator proceeds to return it.
Mike Harrigan went to Danny's grave, and he took out Danny's police badge and just put it on the grave. For anybody who was walking around and would be like, hey, there's an LAPD police badge right there. I could exploit that and take an LAPD.
Probably. That's one of those moments that, like, sweet sentiment, but it's like throwing your pill bottles into the ocean to signify that you're done with drugs. It's like, yeah, but something else is probably just going to get into those.
Yeah. Danny's
necklace had been, this is confusing because Danny Archuleta, the character, and there's Danny Glover, the actor.
Yeah.
This gets you confused. But, yeah, the Predator had left Danny's necklace on the gravestone.
And there was a scene where we get kind of two different viewpoints, and one of them is from a small child who's running around with a toy gun, and he comes in contact with the Predator. And you see, I don't know if it's the laser beam symbol, or if it's just directly from this, whatchamacallit, from the heat vision, but
the laser beam is marked by 3 red dots.
Okay.
Lights, yeah.
So the Predator was definitely about to just murder this small child, and then he's like, oh wait, hold up a second. That's not a real gun.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't shoot the small kid in the face.
Yeah, the Predator is... its moral code is largely based on whether or not you're attacking it, or not attacking it, but whether or not you're a conceivable threat that he can have a fight with. If you're
small
not,
children.
yeah, I mean,
okay,
yeah, he'll do it. Yeah.
weirdly specific moral guidelines of
It's
alien
weird.
species.
I'll get into that a bit more. So yeah, they go. We next see Jeremy and Leona in the subway. They're starting to get to know each other. They're warming up. They've warmed up to each other quite a bit.
Fair amount, I would say.
Yeah. Three guys are trying to rob this one guy. He's just like, or five guys are trying to rob this one guy, and he is just like, okay, just let me get my money. I have a gun. I have a gun. And then he's just like, oh yeah, I also have a gun. Mine's bigger. And the other guy takes his gun. And then the rest of the subway pulls out handguns.
Oh god.
Because this is the city they live in.
That's fair.
This again speaks to this being a big mild dystopian future, where just LA has just descended into war.
Yes.
The Predator then shows up there, starts killing people.
Which,
yeah.
Okay. So, as we just stated, that everybody in this city is packing heat.
Mm-hmm.
The Predator only seems to be following the main cast of characters. The three people that are closest to...
Yeah, this does seem a bit coincidental, this bit.
Yeah.
Almost like there should have been like one more guy from the earlier fights who got away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they don't really justify... This is the weakest portion of the movie in a lot of respects.
Yeah.
They can't see the Predator, but they end up fighting. Leona herds the crowd back into the other end of the train, while Jeremy Lambert fights off the Predator. This was a badly shot scene. It's constantly flickering between things. That's like lit by like single lights.
Honestly, I could not tell a single thing that was going on, except for by the fact that
they are trying something with this scene, and it is not working.
No.
Yeah, it's just really hard to see. It's like shaky and tons of shots. There's a little bit of this technique in the later fight scene after this, but it's not nearly as outrageous.
No.
Like, it's an example of everything. And we get a little bit of a demonstration of the Predator just tanking small arms fire.
Another seizure warning for those people.
Oh, yeah. Probably.
Because apparently that's our thing, because we've done it twice now.
Yeah.
Both.
Hopefully the next one.
You want to do Blade 3's rape scene?
Is Blade 3 on the list? No. Blade 1?
Pokemon? No, that wasn't the movie, correct?
Which one?
The red blue seizure that
was a TV episode.
Okay.
That was like a Porygon episode.
That was set off 3 children.
Yeah, in Japan.
In Japan.
Yeah. Never made it to the States.
No, it's a good thing.
Yeah, they censored that before they came here, which not the bad kind of censorship. So Jeremy is then seemingly killed, or maybe he is killed, and the Predator just drags his body away.
Yeah,
because he's on the ground when the other cop goes to check on him, and she finds him on the ground. She tries shooting at the Predator. She gets caught by the Predator. The Predator starts choking her out. And then he stops when he notices that she's pregnant.
Yeah, and it's never stated anything.
It kind of feels like... I remembered this movie, and I'm like, okay, it kind of feels like this is Jerry's, but they've only known each other for 4 days, and this does... what we see of the baby is too far along to be just a 4-day-old.
And on top of that, they might have preluded to it in the beginning, like earlier on. They were talking about Peter Keyes. They were following him, and he's like, "Oh shucks, I let him get away, and I got distracted." What do you think was distracting him?
Yeah, she was with him when that happened.
Okay,
and so still, I mean, that doesn't. Yeah, so
no,
we don't know what
it does not make up for it. This just seems like lazy writing.
I like. It's just a weird implication that she's, because we don't know who the father
seems
is. And
like they're setting themselves up for a third one with potentially Leona returning later on in the series.
God, that would have been a sweet...
Because it's like a weird plot device that they're using to keep one character alive. Right?
I get why she keeps the Predator keeps them alive, because good hunting practices would probably preclude you from killing a pregnant deer.
Yeah.
So that's why he doesn't kill her. But just now you're saying that would have been a sweet sequel with like Danny Glover and Schwarzenegger and her teaming up.
Yeah,
that would have been Predator 3. That would have been way. I mean, Predators is okay, but it's third of 4 to me.
Yeah,
maybe it's either third or second best movie in the franchise. It's good, but it's just not really iconic. They still don't have a box office draw on that. I forget who's all in it. They got like one actor I could name for you. Yeah, and Harrigan arrives shortly after this. He chases the Predator down the subway, and then finds the Predator ripping out Jerry's head, butt, and spine, which he, I guess he rips off the skin. I don't see the head on it later, but he carries it on his back, the spine and whatnot. Harrigan proceeds to chase him around from the car, because he's now picked up on the shimmer and is able to track it. So he chases it down the street toward a building, and then is rammed by the feds, and is then taken into a surveillance trailer where Gary Busey explains everything. And this is one thing I like about it. He basically says, oh yeah, we've tracked this thing to where it's eating with special radars, which we had seen early in the movie, that were tracking its pheromones. So that explained why they were always at the crime scene so quickly. So yeah, we had gotten hints they were tracking them, and they had tracked him to this meat packing plant, because apparently it was eating the beef there. And they've been slow, while it's not there, they've been setting it up to trap the Predator and getting ultraviolet lights to better see it. And also they've set up foil suits that keep in their body heat. Probably learned a bit of this from Predator 1, where Schwarzenegger had put some mud on him to disguise his body heat. So they've probably debriefed a bit from him. So Gary Busey shows him in. And now we get a good explanation of what's been going on, because we realize, okay, this seems like just the feds taking in, and he had dropped a line earlier, but this is just, we got tons of other undercover operatives, we don't know who they are, so I can't have you doing stuff. But no, it turns out the plan here, as far as I can gather, is they had come here, they're trying to suppress information, because they don't really know what kind of technology this thing has. It could be listening to the radios, and if people realize what they're onto, the thing might bail. And they're trying to capture this thing so they can capture its technology. Which is, honestly, as far as these sort of tropes go, this is kind of well set up. The conflict is not so much because he's being obtuse and doing this to purposely be annoying, like we get in Predator 4, but it's because he's just trying to do his job, and the circumstances that surrounded him are just unfortunate and caused him to inadvertently antagonize Harrigan. And also Gary Busey's a bit unlikable, so that was a bit of bad.
I was just about to say that.
And
he could have went about it if that was the case. But
they need another they need another face man for this operation. And this is what I kind of like about this. I like the reasoning here. It's like, okay, this thing's going to keep coming here. There's been not just the event in 87, but also it had been to Iwo Jima he names off, and a bunch of other places he named off. And this thing's they've been doing game trails here for at least a century, from what he's gathering, from what we get from him.
That goes back to even into the Alien versus Predator, does it not?
Yeah.
Where they...
That is... I haven't seen Alien versus Predator in a while. I don't even think No, I've seen it all the way through, but I don't care for it. But yeah, he says, we get from Gary Busey that the Predators have been doing this for a century. They had... I'm guessing that Schwarzenegger was the first guy to kill one, just because now this is why this organization exists.
Yes.
So it's possible he's the only one that's killed one so far as we know. But yeah, the thing I like about this is it's really smart. He's taking into consideration, like, okay, we need to get this technology, because not only are they just killing people, but like this is just them doing hunting for fun. These are probably
this is sport to them.
Yeah, this is probably and let's be honest, they're traveling interstellarly. This is probably the rich predators doing this. This is just their luxury. And these are the good hunters. Like, what happens when we end up with the equivalent of those idiots that fly helicopters and machine hogs from them?
Oh, God.
And, like, get the alien equivalent of that.
Yeah.
We're going to need some of this alien technology to
fight back
eventually. God forbid they bring the war in.
Yes.
And that's one thing I like. I like that this isn't really stated. This is just what I was thinking, because it's like, it's good. Normally science fiction has the trope of Planet of Hats, and it's like, normally like, oh yeah, Planets of Hats is bad because it gives us the idea that all these aliens are the same. Yes. But what if you play against it and like consider, okay, what if all these aliens don't play the same? What if there is one dishonorable guy in the warrior race? Yeah. Which is like one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek is House of Quark, where there's a Klingon who's undermining another house with financial stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's great because you play against type and you get that. Yeah, the Planet of Hats doesn't make the idea that Planet of Hats is bullshit doesn't make the Predators less scary. It makes them infinitely more terrifying. Because these are the nice ones.
Yes.
And what happens when, like, they get either malicious or, worse, intentionally destructive? Like, you could even see this franchise going in a direction where they're creating situations like what we got in LA to create...
Once again, I think the comic books actually touch a lot more on how it's kind of like a Spartan society. There's occasionally a bad Spartan, but most of them, if you've seen 300, can hold their own, right?
Yeah. I haven't read any of the comics. I think I've read
one.
I've read Batman vs. Predator 2.
I don't know if that counts.
I don't think it's canon to this.
Okay. I would hope not.
All the movies are supposed to be in a timeline, which is weird. We might as well talk about this now. So yeah, the original takes place in modern day 1987.
Yes.
The second one takes place in the near future.
Yes.
Near dystopian future. The third one we don't know because the third one's premise is they kidnap a bunch of people. We recognize a bunch of names, but the context could be completely different. Like they kidnap a Yakuza guy, and a Colombian cartel guy, and a soldier. That could be any sort of situation they're drawing from. The situation could be completely different. It's just these guys still need to exist, which, they probably do.
Yeah.
And then the fourth one takes place in modern day 2018, and everything's the same. Except the frickin' everything positive I've said about the government organization in Predator 2 is bullshit in that one, because they just kill random innocent people to keep this secret.
Okay.
Which really annoys. I hate that movie. It's so...
Okay. So 1997 has no technological advances. Okay.
Well,
maybe a few technological advances, and then 1990 or 2018.
What do they have in 1997 that they don't have in 1990? Like PlayStations, a couple extra computers.
Yeah.
So there's not. I don't. This isn't like
they
Tokyo Drift where 2017 Tokyo looks like 2005 Tokyo.
Okay.
So it's...
What I was saying is they really did not need to put it 7 years into the future.
Yeah.
They could have shot it in 1990, said it was 1990, and been like, well, we're the government, we've got special equipment.
Though
we've
at
got
that
these
point...
cool computers, and, you know...
Though at that point you can't have this totally insane situation in LA, because then you're comparing it like, okay, this is what LA is like, and I'm like, and this movie, it's like, this is what LA is like in this kind of semi-apocalyptic future,
I guess
dystopian future.
Gotta be a little bit more respectful to LA, I guess.
Yeah, because I can never stand it when like a movie, there's like these Christploitation movies that like, oh yeah, this is how things are now. Everything's as bad as we're saying it is right now. And it's like, okay, you can buy this as like a dystopian future, but it's not the actual thing that's happening today. This is like, yeah, with this sort of thing you need to clarify, okay, this is taken in the future. This is the direction things could go. I think otherwise you'd have to set it in the forest again, which some people would like, but I think the setting's fine unless it's...
So just going back to the plot here to kind of move things along.
Yeah.
Danny Glover is sitting... Or Mike Harrigan, Danny Glover,
Yeah, you can call
same
him either way.
person.
Just call it either way. It's
Yeah.
fine. The other Danny's dead now.
Yeah, he doesn't exist anymore. There can only be one Danny. So yeah, Danny Glover is sitting in this surveillance trailer, with Gary Busey. And once again, this is where I really don't like Gary Busey, because he's super showboaty about it. He's like, yeah, we're going to go kill him. You get to sit here and watch in this surveillance trailer. Watch as we...
To be fair, they probably don't have an extra suit.
Is that really a factor, though?
I mean, if you had an extra suit, you just send in an extra guy.
So Danny Glover's sitting in this surveillance suit, and this is where shit gets weird, because if I ever figured... This is where the not necessarily like the pronoun game, but like the who, where, what, why game is going on really weirdly, and they're like, the Predator can't find it, and he finds one channel on his helmet or whatever that can see through.
So what happens is they go in with their cooled suits so that they can't be seen through infrared vision, because they've put together that this thing sees through something equivalent to infrared. They go in with ice gun, with like frost guns and suits.
Sorry, we didn't touch on that.
Yeah.
They are carrying around ice guns to try and freeze down the Predator so that they can keep him alive and do all the tests.
Preferably interrogate him or dissect him and get his technology.
So Predators can translate into English roughly, but they get like sound bits.
Yeah.
Like what's?
I think the implication is they pick up. They can mimic sound. I don't know how much they understand really. They've occasionally understood bits of speech, but I think I think they understand broken English. They understand English, or like a language to the equivalent of like broken English. They pick up sound bites and they repeat those through. I guess they have parrot voice or whatever.
Yes. Because throughout this movie, the little child says, "Do you want some candy?" And he's offering the Predator candy, and he's constantly parroting.
He does this in he does this in all the movies. That's its. Yeah, it doesn't have a voice of its own. It just kind of like has like a clicky growl type thing. So the Busey's team goes in with cooled suits and these ice guns in an attempt to catch the Predator. The Predator notices something's wrong and is just like looking around, and switches through settings on his helmet to switch between different types of vision, which is something he can do. And this is the first time this is introduced, because it never came up in the first one, obviously, because they didn't set up the situation. But they use it in some of the games where you can like set it up into different visions. Yeah. I know in Alien vs. Predator, the 2007 Alien vs. Predator game, you can click through the settings, and you can even see like alien vision and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And he eventually flicks through different visor settings till one that picks up the ultraviolet flashlights that the Busey's team is holding.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, he starts killing them. Harrigan notices from the cameras on the guys' helmets that the Predator is picked up on what's going on, and starts rushing toward there as the Predator starts killing Busey's team, picking up his guns, arming himself, and then as Busey's the last man standing, he blows a hole in the wall with his grenade launcher, like his under-barreled mounted grenade launcher, instead of going through the door.
I think it was more like he's about to kill Gary Busey, so he needed to distract.
Is that a bad thing?
I mean, kind of, because like Gary Busey sets him up for the kill.
Yeah,
but
yes.
And so back to where I was going with this tangent I was about to go on. They are sitting in front of the monitors and they're switching through the channel, and the guy on the radio, for whatever reason, goes, "Oh, he's right there."
Yeah,
there was no like indicator.
The radio guy,
who is? I would have fired that guy right the fuck. Like,
the radio guy who is the guy I had mentioned earlier, who is that guy they took out of college into the flight school. He is useless on the radios. He is not directing them properly. They clearly needed someone else to do this. Harrigan gets in. He saves Busey at the last minute and starts unloading into the Predator with his shotgun. Yeah. Which then we realize, he's not totally bulletproof. You just need like big firearms to kill this guy. Yeah. And so he takes the Predator down temporarily. Mm-hmm. He comes up to him, looks at him, doesn't double tap. He doesn't. I mean, Zombieland's not out yet.
Yes.
So this isn't a rule, but always double tap your aliens when you kill them.
Yes.
Yeah. He makes the mistake of he should have stuck that gun underneath that thing's chin and a couple times probably. Instead, he starts taking off the mask, unhooks the hoses, which I don't totally understand what is for even to this day, because these things can breathe in regular air, but they have these hoses into their helmets.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I even don't get. Maybe it's explained in an expanded material at some point,
but it's shown in the movie.
I mean, that he needs the air into the thing.
Okay, so later on in this fight, actually, he is grabbing something out of his pocket, and it's like an inhaler, essentially. I don't know how much air they can breathe in, technically, without the helmet, so I think that's...
Maybe it's long-term... Yeah, my best theory was it's a long-term thing, where like, okay, for like an hour you're okay, sort of, but you're not able... Maybe you're just like, okay, he's getting like a more pure form of oxygen, or whatever he breathes. Yeah, he takes off the helmet, looks at the guy, and we get our callback to the previous movie, where Schwarzenegger had seen him without his mask and had been like, "You're one ugly motherfucker."
Yes.
And then Harrigan says that to him, which they've done away with this phrase in the later movies, but I don't think they should have. It's fun getting these little callbacks. Some people don't like them. I like them.
I mean, I think that's kind of the generational gap. But, you know, if you're trying to appeal to the old Predator fans and, like, the older audience that are coming in to watch it because of the franchise name, right? Throw in a callback, right?
Yeah.
That's just how it should go.
So yeah, he gets him out, and he's just like, Harrigan's just like, "You're one ugly." And then the Predator wakes up, grabs him by the neck, and just like, "Motherfucker!" and just like tosses him around. So yeah, the Predator's still alive. It grabs onto Harrigan's shotgun, smashes it against the ground, and then he starts coming after him. Busey steps in, sprays him with his frost gun for a little bit, and then we get our glimpse at his the Predator's disc weapon, which he throws, and we see it go through a couple pieces of meat, and obscured by the meat, Gary Busey's head gets cut off. So... yeah, most of our cast is gone. So Harrigan has to run off. He's running away. The Predator is chasing after him. They get to a rooftop. They fight. Predator almost pushes the Predator off a roof. He's holding on to Harrigan from the roof, and he's holding off. And he's just like, okay, he's going to fall. And I guess the Predator thinks he won't survive the fall because he starts, which is weird, because he survives big falls like this in other places. He starts putting in what we recognize from the last movie as the Predator's self-destruct sequence, which in the last one had gone off, and which is a big deal for this movie because millions of people might die.
Yes, it's not just
This is LA. I don't know what the population of LA is in pseudo 1997, but I think millions of people might not be able to think.
I'm assuming it's a lot less than the population of people in regular 1997, considering all the drugs and gang violence.
And we had learned earlier from Gary Busey that the previous Predator explosion had blown up some like 300 city blocks worth of, or 300 square mile, like 300 city blocks or something of forest. I mean, Harrigan doesn't realize this, I don't think. He's trying to get this thing off its arm. So the disc weapon had got lost a little bit, and it's like just out of arm's reach, so he's reaching for it and finally gets his disc weapon and chops through the Predator's arm, shutting down the self-destruct weekend, saving hundreds of thousands of lives.
Yes.
Then the Predator falls. It grabs onto something on the way down and falls through a window. And then proceeds to homebrew some crazy healing stuff from the...
He goes into a bathroom, grabs drywall out of the wall, and starts firing it into this handcrafted pot that he had.
For clarity, in the first movie, he had these little syringes which he was able to and heal. That's where, if you played some of the Alien vs. Predator games, the Predator will have like needles that he jams into himself and heals. He doesn't use it in this one, but I'm guessing he knows how to craft it, or he has some raw materials in case his other ones got busted, which he might have had to use earlier in the movie because he has been shot at places. So he cauterizes his arm and heals some of his wounds, best to his ability. He's still weaker, obviously. So Harrigan tries climbing down the building. Yeah,
so we didn't touch on this earlier. He's afraid of heights. Yeah, in the start of the movie when they are on the rooftop, he's like, I need to get down from here. Danny, get me down from here.
Yeah, earlier we forgot to mention his cloak had been fried by the sprayers in the thing, which may have interacted with the radioactive particles they were spraying around in that meat plant.
That's
which they were doing as part of their prep. So his cloak is down. Harrigan climbs down the building, starts chasing him through the thing. Just as the Predator finishes up, he barges through, scares some old woman.
Who was watching Jeopardy?
Yeah, who was watching...
I did not get to learn the answer to that Jeopardy question. That really hurt me.
Yeah. So he had wandered by, and Harrigan follows after him, and he's just like, don't worry, I'm a cop. And she's like, I don't think he gives a shit. So he chases him down. The Predator has jumped down an elevator, so now Harrigan has to climb down the elevator shaft too. He starts climbing down, and the elevator starts moving a third of the way down. So he starts wandering down, and he's like, I gotta run. And then he falls through a hole in the bottom of the elevator shaft. So at this point, we learned that the Predator was apparently retreating to its ship.
Underground.
Yeah, which is hidden underground.
Yeah, there might be the weird connection between the subway scene and the end of the movie. I guess
that's what I figured too. I figured he had...
was going through the underground tunnel system? Yeah,
because he had returned there to cure King Willie's skull. So I suppose the turn of events is that he came out through there and then found those thugs in the subway.
That could be very easily.
And it was just coincidental our heroes were there. So they have their final fight. Harrigan and the Predator have a knife fight. Harrigan having the disc, and the Predator having his gauntlet claws.
Yes.
And they fight, and they fight, and they fight. And eventually, Predator has him against a wall, and Harrigan stabs him with the disc and starts using it, and cuts into the thing's things, this time killing it for real. After this, a bunch of other, 12 other Predators decloak. He's just like, who's next? So what else do you say?
Okay, first of all, let's be realistic here. He could not go another round with any of those Predators.
Yeah.
He was done. There was no way if they tried to fight him, he wouldn't have survived that. And
they have one of the shoulder lasers mounted, pointed.
That's
at
when the Predator's moral compass code, whatever, alien fighting guideline they have going on, gave them immunity. Yeah, he fought one, and he doesn't have to fight.
I guess they let you go. Once. I guess they let you go if you kill one of them, or if you kill one.
Was there other ones doing other things? Did they beam down from a mothership? Were they there the whole time and just hanging out?
It's weird that these guys were just hanging out.
Supporting his friend during his trial by combat with a inferior.
Maybe. I don't. Yeah, it's weird that
were they running their own surveillance?
Were they doing a thing? Are they not all combat guys? Was this one going through a rite of passage?
Pledging a fraternity?
Yeah.
Are they frat brothers?
So after him killing one, they drag off the body of their fallen comrade, and the lead Predator, I guess, hands him a gun that reveals that it had come from 1715. So these guys have been doing these hunts for upwards of 300 years, we now know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, maybe even longer. I don't know if it was just... I didn't really look at all the people teleporting in. Yeah. But this guy was carrying a gun and a old-fashioned sword, almost as a trophy.
Oh, yeah.
So, one was a pirate sword and a pirate gun. But I didn't look at all the Predators that were decloaking in, right? So maybe they were...
This could be a thing.
But he takes the gun and he very cryptically said something along the lines of, "Oh, they'll be back."
Yeah,
and I thought this was a really cool moment because I didn't realize that.
To clarify, the Predator ship then begins to take off, and Harrigan ditches the ship, and he comes outside, and the government guys show up, and he says, "Oh, you'll get another chance," and then he walks off.
You know what I think this movie could have done with? A fade to black. Yeah. Instead of Kerrigan walking out of the whatchamacallit, he's stuck on this ship. Bam. Fade to black. Predator 3. On the alien planet where he's being hunted with this single flintlock pistol as a weapon that they had given him. And I like this because that was one of the comics that I was reading. What it was about was a human being put onto an alien planet and being hunted by aliens. And I don't know what he started with it or if they started him off with something, but they were drop shipping him in supplies and stuff like that.
That's the premise of Predators, the third one. They had kidnapped a bunch of dangerous humans and dumped them on this alien planet, which was essentially a game preserve or a specially made game planet. Yeah, and they'll hunt guys there.
Oh, is that the... Okay, wait. Yeah. I've never seen it, but
Venom.
Brock. Yeah.
Venom, yeah.
Venom in this Spider-Man 3. He was in this one, right?
Yeah, he's in there. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he plays a serial killer character. Spoiler alert.
Offhandedly, just ruining the whole entire Predator series.
Yeah, that was a premise of the third one, which they end up doing years later. Which works okay, I think, because I think you could take from the implication that sometime after this, it gets too dangerous for them to be doing this on Earth, so they just start kidnapping people, which probably works with the timeline, I guess.
It's a lot safer for them.
They also start hunting in groups in that one.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's groups of humans too, right?
Yeah, this was against a group of humans.
They band together? Or
they were sent in together, and they work together for the most part. And they're provided with big weapons and ammo.
That's better.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is set up. But yeah, this is... So yeah, he had ended there. Yeah, the movie didn't do well, so they never continued it. Next Predator movie was 2004 with Alien vs. Predator, and then the 2010 movie with Predators, which is pretty good, pretty decent.
Well, no, there's two AVPs. I don't.
Yeah, there's there's AVP 1, AVP 2, and then we get the standalone Predators movie, which is pretty good.
Because Requiem actually gives us a little more insight into the background of, first of all, the Predators on Earth, and also the aliens on Earth. And
AVP is canon, at least with Predator 4.
With Predator 4.
Yeah, because they do have some Easter eggs from AVP and Predator 4. But yeah, this is before they start combining those two franchises.
Yes.
And that was the direction they were going at that point.
Yeah.
Which has since ceased for the most part.
Yes.
They're separate again.
I just thought it was a really cool Easter egg when you saw the alien skull.
Yeah.
In the skull.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was cool.
Yeah, fun little Easter egg for this. And it spawned something that was... We at least got some good video games out of, debatably a couple okay movies. One of them, or at least one okay movie, it depends on. I haven't seen all of Requiem. I've seen AVP, but it was... The Predator's not scary.
Okay, so you seem to have a better understanding of the Predator series as a whole.
Yeah.
Please try to explain to me how he ended up in the Mortal Kombat universe.
20th Century Fox paid Warner Brothers some money, and I don't know. I've played a bit of Mortal Kombat X, but I don't know the things.
He and I guess Schwarzenegger showed up as the Terminator eventually.
Yeah, later on. That was 11.
It's been a clusterfuck.
Yeah. So what do you think?
I thought it was pretty decent for the most part. Once again, I have no understanding of the Predator universe, and that was the first movie that I watched. I watched it actually on DVD on an old box TV, and I was like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So that was the first time I watched the series. Danny Glover was decent. I think if they wanted to continue casting him in the series and continue from where
they've never stuck
off
with the direction with this, which is kind of a shame.
I think they could have definitely Danny Glover could have carried that instead of having to rely on Arnold Schwarzenegger to come back and stuff like that.
And he could always come back in a later one. They can team up. That's a fun.
I don't like how open-ended how it ended, because it was so open-ended. I expected more, it being such an old franchise. I finished it and I was like, I wonder if there's a third, because they really, there's a pregnant chick and she's got a kid and she's potentially dead. Yeah. They never come back to that.
No. The Predators is a completely different cast. Predator 4 is a different cast.
So we don't even know if Leona is alive or dead. The last time we checked, she was getting ambulance road to someplace.
She ran on made it to the hospital like the other chick, for all we know.
Yes.
I mean, judging by what we see in Predator 4, they might just kill these people after that. Because that's... whatever. What would you give it?
I don't know. I'd say probably about a 7 out of 10. Once again, it was enjoyable. I sat down and it is a longer movie. I think it is something like 2 hours and... A
little under 2 hours.
A little under 2 hours.
If I'm remembering correctly, but a little under 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little under 2 hours. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Seriously?
No, I think this is very close to the perfect version of this movie.
Okay.
Which is because I'm not going to wrap myself into a corner where I'm not allowed to give, Avengers Infinity War a 10 out of 10, but because I gave Imitation of Life a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
This is close to the perfect version of this movie. You probably need to do something about the voodoo posse.
Yeah.
It's not great.
And that's worth 1 mark off, is what you're telling me? Black player.
Yeah, it's something I didn't really... Yeah, it's... There's a you could talk this down to an 8 out of 10 for me, but you could talk me down to an 8 out of 10 But yeah, that subway scene, which is just really badly shot. But otherwise, I think this is really, really good and should have been received better. They talk about it like it's this derivative piece of trash, and it's not. It's really good.
I have yet to actually sit down and read any reviews on it, so maybe the internet has slandered this a lot more than...
It's like 2 out of 4 from Roger Ebert. It's got 86% of Google users like this.
Okay. So at least somebody...
Rotten Tomatoes is the worst score at like 20-some%. Rotten Tomatoes is nonsense. IMDb 6.3 out of 10, which, it's closer to what you gave it, but even that's a bit low. Whereas with Predator 1, no one has anything bad to say about that movie. And there are flaws with that movie. Like there's the bit where I'd probably also give that movie a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
So that's fair, because that movie is good, except for, honestly, it is better than this.
Yes.
But I'd only give it, like, you could talk me down to an 8 out of 10 on this. I'd keep Predator at 9 out of 10, because there is that one bit where, if you've seen it, the big pussy bit. Yeah, no, it's...
Okay. So, yeah, there might have been a callback in this one to it.
If it is, I didn't notice it, and it's not nearly as obnoxious as that joke. That was a bad joke. But I think this is really good, and it's close to as perfect as is can be. You go over the voodoo gang a bit better again, because it's not enough of a parody to get away with that sort of behavior. And it's... Yeah, and then that subway scene is just a really badly shot. I can't... Yeah. But yeah, you could get 8 or 9 out of 10 for me. It's sad because, like, I've been mostly happy with the Predator franchise. 4 is the only one I don't like.
Yeah.
I'd probably put Predators as an 8. Maybe a 9 even. It's pretty good. But yeah, Predator 4 is the only one I don't like. I didn't like AVP, but I count that as a different beast.
Yeah.
Because that's a different, maybe 20 years after, or like 10, 14 years after this.
With a whole different tie-in, a whole different feel to the movie, really. Like, one...
That's more... That probably has more Alien Resurrection DNA than it has this.
Well, like, here's the way I look at it. Like, in the AVP, even in AVP, the aliens and the predators are these juggernauts, and the humans are kind of these underdogs, and this kind of captures that a lot better on the scale that in this movie, humans are prey. There's no easy way to say it. The humans are, like, easily picked off, killed, but... Which goes back to what I was saying about Gary Busey's organization. They're doing this for the good of survival, because this is like... These are technologically advanced species that's essentially going bow hunting for fun. Mm. Yeah, that's basically the equivalent here. But you're still rooting with Gary Busey.
Yeah. I mean, I'd probably root for the annoying deer in Bambi if I watched that. I've never seen Bambi, so I don't know. Is there an annoying deer in Bambi?
Yeah, Bambi.
Oh.
What are you...
Bambi, by starring Gary Busey.
What are you trying to indicate?
Yeah. Like, I'm saying, like, as far as the prey goes, I still vote for him. It's not like Predator 4 where, like, the government's also evil. And it's like, no, you don't need that. I think that's all we got. What are we reviewing next week?
I have no clue, and I need a dice.
Yeah. Get up the list.
We've got a 19 here.
That brings us toward the bottom of the list. I have Black Cauldron listed.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have no clue what the Black Cauldron's about.
That is a Disney movie.
Is it a Disney movie?
Yeah, it's got cult status, but it's like the least financially successful one.
Oh.
Yeah. So yeah, that'll be fun next week.
Next week?
Yeah, I put it on. I kind of wanted to see it.
Okay.
Yeah. So see you guys next week. Have fun, kids. Hey kids, I'm Editor Kyle. I differ from the Kyle you just watched because I am from the future and in possession of superior technology. Just a reminder, you can follow us on Twitter at Kyle and Cody's Cult Classics, at KCCCC, and you can find us on
Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as other aggregates. We will be on Google Podcasts pretty soon, if we aren't already by the time you're hearing this. So there have been some improvements from last week's. This was the first proper episode of the cast. We're now getting into the 20 regular episodes that we have scheduled. And we have had some improvements. We're constantly improving, so bear with us. Little treat we have coming up. We have probably some guests showing up at some point in the future. I won't speak too much about that, but one of them might be happening in April here pretty quick. So if you enjoyed the show, make sure to leave those 5-star reviews, circulate the links, and I will see you next week with our review of Black Cauldron.